Hi everyone, John Heath here again for MiltonRose Learning with another Let's Learn video on Great Gatsby context. So it's fast cars, champagne and a massive green light. So what we're going to look at today is we will have a look at the American society and some of the key contextual factors in the 1920s. Then we'll look at how that context plays out in the context in action section. And then I've got three really kind of interesting quotes that illustrate some of these contextual themes, which will be very useful for your essays and for your exams as well. So let's dive in. So first off then, 1920s American society. So let's just get it lined up nicely. There we go. Okay then. So first off then, in 1920s American society then, so this was known as the Roaring Twenties. So it was a time of economic boom, great jazz music and a lot of cultural change. But also there was a kind of more negative side to it as well, of kind of excess in terms of alcohol and drugs and things like that. And moral ambiguity, where people kind of weren't acting in the most moral sense, dare I say, and there were anything goes. It was pretty much kind of do what you like. So there's a bit of a kind of push and pull dynamic during the Roaring Twenties. And then also it was very much the time of the American dream. So the notion that anybody, no matter what your social class or how you start life, but anybody can make it. Anybody can become rich and kind of have a slice of the pie, basically. And it was widely believed in American society, but the dream itself was deeply flawed. So wealth and success were often pursued even through corruption or illusion, such as what J. Gatsby does. He achieves this great wealth and the American dream, but he is a crook and it's all a one big lie in certain senses. So the American dream was showed to be very illusory. Okay, then moving on to this kind of interesting image. So some more context then for Gatsby. So as you can see in the image, it was kind of very carefree era in some ways. So we have the Prohibition era. So in the 1920s there was a nationwide ban on alcohol across the US, so it was made illegal. However, people still like to drink, so this fueled illegal activities like bootlegging, which was illegal production of alcohol, and speakeasies, which are these kind of hidden bars all around the cities. And they were central to Gatsby's mysterious wealth because he broke the law and got, insanely wealthy from making illegal liquor, illegal alcohol across America and then selling it. And so basically he is one big crook, basically, but he's become very, very rich during the Prohibition era. Also, the post-war economic boom and consumerism. So the rapid growth of industry and mass consumer culture, kind of buying stuff and kind of enjoying just buying stuff is kind of consumerism in a nutshell. And it encouraged extravagance and the focus on materialism and material wealth, reflecting the novel's obsession with this wealth and status. Okay, so it's kind of, it looks all ritzy glitzy like it does in the image, but there's nothing underneath, and ultimately it's extremely hollow. And I think that's one of the points of the context behind the novel. And then how does that play out? This is F. Scott Fitzgerald, the writer. So he looks a bit stunned in the picture. So let's have a look what he believes. Now, when I'm teaching this kind of novel kind of in class or with my tutees, I tend to pick out two big points for Fitzgerald. So the first off is this text is clearly a critique of the American dream. So he's exposing the hollowness and the corruption behind that concept that anyone can achieve success through hard work alone. It sounds really beautiful on paper and you think, yeah, that's a really seductive idea. But it leads people to kind of do kind of illegal acts sometimes, like J. Gatsby. And it can be kind of illusory. Even when you achieve the American dream, you never really end up getting what you want and it's all hollow in the end. And I think also he has a big criticism of materialism So the idea that just material wealth is everything. And I think he has a kind of a bit of a problem with that. So he highlights the moral decay. I think that's a great phrase for your essays and exams. And the recklessness of the wealthy during this jazz age. So he shows how pursuit of pleasure often leads just to emptiness. Characters like Daisy, they're insanely wealthy, but they're really unhappy. The wealth doesn't bring them happiness, and I think that's again a very big contextual message to take from this novel. Okay, so let's look at how this kind of plays out in action. So as we can see, a very nice kind of ballroom there during the 1920s, and that plays out into our first point. So old money versus new money. So let's talk about that. So there is a tension in this text between East Egg, that part of the novel, East Egg's inherited wealth, so they've all just made their money just by being born and then getting it from their parents, and West Egg's newly acquired riches, what they would call the nouveau riche, the new rich. And that highlights the class divisions and challenges the idea of the American dream as truly accessible to all, because it wasn't just about the money. So, for instance, Jay Gatsby makes his money, becomes, just as wealthy as, say, Tom Buchanan and Daisy. But he's never accepted as their equal, because they say, well, we're old money, you're new money, you've just gone away and just made all this money, but you don't have the social graces of us. So he can never truly be an equal. And that was a real problem with the American dream. You can have the same amount of money, but the old rich and the people who've inherited wealth will never accept you anyway. So you're chasing an impossible dream to be accepted. Okay. Then we have women's roles and independence. So characters like Daisy Buchanan and Jordan Baker, they reflect the changing but still constrained roles for women in the 1920s. They're kind of almost caught between traditional expectations, so almost patriarchy and women just being in the kitchen and being mothers and things like that, but also these new freedoms that were starting to come in, and they were kind of creating gender tensions in the era, because the new freedoms were kind of letting women do pretty much what they wanted and kind of be independent. And so that those two characters are very much at the centre of that kind of social conflict that was going on between old female roles or the new ones that were coming in, giving females more independence. Then we have dreams and disillusionment. So the novel very much explores the profound gap between glamorous dreams and the harsh realities. Okay, so it shows how Gatsby's hope for success and love for Daisy Buchanan, he really wants to win her back, but it's undermined by the social barriers. He'll never be old money. He'll never have the social kind of standing of Tom Buchanan, Daisy's husband, and he can never compete. So it ultimately reveals that, the American dream is good on paper, but you'll never get it anyway, and it's just all one big kind of illusion. So it's, again, kind of a real pessimistic view there coming from Fitzgerald. Now let's have a look at some really nice quotes for your essays, okay, which kind of symbolise some of these contextual issues. So first off, we have Tom Buchanan. He looks all nice in the picture, but he's actually quite a bit of a brute. So he's old money privilege. So he's inherited his money from his parents, and so he's got all this nice social standing behind him. And he says, "I'm inclined to reserve all judgments." Let's unpick that. So that reflects Tom's arrogant confidence that's rooted in his inherited wealth and his social status. He's at the top of the social pyramid, so he thinks he's the big man, and he talks like he's kind of looking down his nose at everybody, including Jay Gatsby. And it shows the entitlement and the superiority of old money families in the 1920s. It doesn't matter if you've got as much money as they have. they'll always look down their nose at you because they go, oh, well, you've just made your money now in the last few years. We've had it for generations, so you're never as good as us. And Gatsby can never quite break through that social kind of that social wall which the old money families put in front of him, and he can never really break through it, which is a part of the tragedy of the novel. Then we have Gatsby's party culture, as you can see from that lovely image. So Gatsby, as we know, in the 1920s, a lot of money, a lot of champagne sloshing around, and Gatsby launches these anonymous parties almost to try and catch Daisy's eye. And the quote is, "People were not invited," and then a kind of dash, a very meaningful dash there. "They went there." So people just rock up at Gatsby's mansion and just kind of enjoy themselves and have loads of free champagne, and it all sounds pretty wonderful. But this captures the chaotic, excessive nature of the Roaring Twenties. It's just too much. And don't forget that Fitzgerald had real problems with alcohol himself, so he could speak from experience. And it's all too much. It's just too much alcohol, too much staying up late, all that kind of stuff. And the era's obsession with spectacle and status. So it highlights the social changes that were going on because all these nouveau riche were making loads of money, but also the moral ambiguity of the time. Is it okay to just rock up to just random parties and just have too much alcohol all the time and then just do it all over again? Ultimately, it's very hollow, and there's nothing at the moral core of it, and there's almost no point to these parties really. So I think it's kind of Fitzgerald there showing that this excess of the Roaring Twenties, which is symbolised by these parties, are ultimately morally kind of ambiguous and kind of corrupt in some ways. Okay, and then finally, one of my favourite kind of images in all of literature. So Gatsby's dream and the green light. So as we can see from that kind of quite beguiling image there, the green light is on Daisy's dock, and he kind of watches it all the time, and it kind of represents his longing for Daisy. So Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us. So let's unpick that. It's such a beautiful quote. It really deserves to be analysed. So this iconic image then symbolises Gatsby's unreachable dream. He reaches out for the green light on Daisy's dock, but he can never grab it. A wonderful kind of metaphor. His personal vision of success, love and identity. Like a siren then, the green light lures him forward to try and grab it, but it reflects the seductive but ultimately hollow nature of the American dream in the 20s. It shines in his eye constantly. He reaches out to grab it, but he can never grab it. He'll never be old money, and he'll never be able to get the love that he wants from Daisy. So the green light really symbolises this novel in a nutshell, and it's one beautiful image that you would need to unpick in pretty much any of Gatsby questions that you get given by your teacher or in the exam. Okay then, right, let's just have a little recap at the end. So we've teased out some of the key contextual factors, looked at the Roaring Twenties and the excess of that time, also the changing kind of breaking down of patriarchy and women's liberation that was starting at the time, as well as old money versus new money. There was a lot of social change going on at that time. We've teased out some of the key context in action, especially surrounding the American dream, which was kind of leading to very big kind of sense of disillusionment with that American dream. And then we've just given you 3 really nice contextual quotes, which would be good for you to reflect on and then to scatter into your essays. Okay then, so if you found this video useful, as always, please hit the like, subscribe, tap the bell icon, tell all your friends, and let's help the channel to grow. And we'll be back with you soon with more videos. And yeah, it just remains to say, obviously, thanks for listening and take care.